talking about?
We're going to have a viral clip. You know that, right? And the best part is,
so for today's interview, I was supposed to talk to my friend Craig Shaynak, who I've known
which is
for
the guy who's talking right now. It's got the name Craig underneath him. He's the guy who took the path of least resistance and ended up in Hollywood as the very, very powerful Sir Irv Weldon with the who likes them shaken, not stirred.
That's
perhaps
right.
On these Sweet Life and Zack and Cody. He is tiny, or was tiny, for 6 seasons of Ray Donovan. And you just been like knocking him dead. You died in a helicopter on ER, a season finale of ER.
I've done on many shows.
You're friends with James Woods.
I am. I saw him in a restaurant. You know what? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I know I mentioned my UFO stories, but we should do this episode on my Hollywood adventures.
Well, that was actually where I was getting to, because you have so much experience in terms of the Fringe over in Edinburgh. And I'd love to do an episode where all we talk about is, if anyone's interested in going over and doing the Fringe, you're the guy to talk to, and I want to do an episode on that.
Now is the time, actually, today, because the website is just opened up for applying. You have to apply now to get there in August.
All right, then that's what we should do.
Yeah.
We're going to completely change this around. This is going to be the Fringe in Edinburgh with a Edinburgh veteran.
Yes.
The one, the only Craig Ritchie Shaynak. He's my guest today. He's also a very good friend of mine from high school, junior high. We were almost related. Had a marriage actually taken place, him and I would be.
That is true.
Second cousins.
That is true.
Second cousins.
Or I always like the phrase cousins twice removed.
Yeah.
Because we're actually closer, because we're kind of brothers twice removed, except
That's right.
You've been removed from my porch several times.
That's right. Because I couldn't sit on mine anymore.
I never forget my mother.
God bless her.
Stephen, what are you doing here? Come inside. You're going to die. You're going to die out here. Yes, Mr. Shaynak. Okay, yeah.
And many a time I'd be dropped off and the door would be locked.
We need to just do this once a week. I have no idea if there's any content going to come out of this.
Oh, there'll be tons of content. I think the stuff between you and I, the stories you and I have outside of.
I feel bad. I'm so unprofessional. I have all this crap in the background.
Dude, your background is better looking than mine. This is the ugliest damn white wall I've got in my.
It has substitute. You know what I have? Okay. So let's start. So your host, Steven, Steven, who was named the next Steven Spielberg.
Oh my God, I forgot
Junior
about
high school. I just told the story yesterday because I said to somebody, I'm going to be on Stephen Hartman's radio show. The guy's like, Stephen Hartman, like the guy who does the stories on Channel 2, like CBS, like about, people. I said, no, the other Stephen Hartman. I said, that's a channel name for you. No, the other Stephen Hartman.
Did I tell you a funny story? We're never going to get to the topic because
everything
you say,
that's
something else. So I'm trying to get Matt Fraser to be a guest on The Experience, okay?
Okay.
So I sent an email out on their website, that I figured would not get anywhere.
Sure.
So I get a phone call later that afternoon. Now, normally, if it's not on my caller ID, I don't answer the phone.
Right.
But something told me to pick up the phone, right? So it's his publicist. His publicist calls and she goes, Steve Hartman, you're with ABC? And I'm like, no. CBS? No. What outlet are you from? Well, I'm about 5 feet away from that wall outlet. I said, I'm just a guy who has a passion for interviewing and topics of all types. And Matt is really, he's intrigued me. He's interesting. He's down to earth. He goes, well, what's your following like? I try not to follow anybody. I mean, people around Manchester get a little cautious. But right now, I'm just starting out. She's like, well, normally we like to have about, anyone with like 250,000 people. I'm like, oh, okay. But if you can get like 100,000, call me back in about a year. I'm like, okay, so 100, that's like 10,000 a year. That should be easy to do, right? If I start right now.
Oh, that's funny.
So if you like and are watching this and want to help me get Matt Fraser on The Experience, please subscribe. It costs you nothing, and you can be part of this. My goal to this time next year have Matt Fraser at least considered, because then I'll have enough people for them to consider it.
Dude, that is funny.
And she was
Oh,
lovely. She was wonderful, very, very pleasant. She didn't like talk down to me or anything like that. She understood what I was trying to do, and I was very happy.
hey,
And she's sending me a book, his latest book, so I have her contact information, which was
it,
a plus because
it
that's
is
the hardest part is getting a contact information
it
for
is
people
amazing.
like
It
that.
is amazing how one interview, if you get it, could start to stockpile the other people. Like, ooh, this guy was on there. This guy. Did you see my title that I put under my name?
Fringe and Hollywood guru, because that's what you are. You are.
Now here's so so I know
And when we talk
everything.
about the fringe, we should say what we're talking about with the
Yeah.
fringe. Explain what the Fringe
I'll
Festival is.
explain what the fringe is. So the for anyone who is a theater performer, dancer, or comedian, or a musician, really now, because it's a lot. There's a lot of things going on. Um, there is a festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. And you have to say this, Edinburgh. You've got to say it like that, Edinburgh. Otherwise, you
Sounds
get in
like
trouble.
it sounds like you're saying eggs and butter. I'll have eggs
Eggs
and
and
butter.
butter. I say eggs and butter. That's exactly like I
It's
would
the
say
Eggs
that.
and Butter Fringe Festival.
That's like eating butter fringe festival. That's why I call it the eating butter fringe festival because you might as well in Scotland they believe in fried food more than America.
Even at the fair season?
A deep fried Mars bar is a popular
Oh, don't even go
confection.
there. Deep
I've had a
fried nonetheless.
I've had a deep fried pizza. Here's
In
a
one sitting.
perfectly good pizza that they make with cheese. They put it in the oven. They take it out. It's like, are you going to eat it now? No, we're going to deep fry it. But it's amazing. Anyway, so so after World War II, the government of Britain decided, you know what, we want to promote the arts. So what they did is they took a big university town up in Scotland, Edinburgh. Was a big university. There's a lot of universities actually. It's actually Edinburgh is almost like the Boston of the United States. There's a lot of universities.
It's an artsy place too,
It's
even,
a
isn't
very
it?
yeah.
Just
It's a
outside of that.
outside of the. It's a very artsy place. They call it the Athens of the North because the architecture is amazing up there. So it's beautiful. It's also cold as heck, winter. So, you have to be brave and Scottish to take the weather, lad. You've got to wear two kilts, you know what
I
I'm
was
saying?
going to say, considering that's all they wear up there.
So in 1947, there was an international theater festival happening, and a bunch of universities decided, well, this is a good time to put on our shows so that we can get an audience as a kind of fringe of the main theater. So the International Theater Festival was happening, and so these universities from London came up, Cambridge, Oxford. Is where you hear the Footlights, all the Monty Python players.
Mhm.
They performed up there. Famously, Dudley Moore and Peter Cook. Their first famous show that made them famous was called Beyond the Fringe.
Mhm.
That was why it was called that. And all the stars like Eddie Izzard, Hugh Laurie, Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry, all the big British comedian people, they come out of the Fringe tradition. In 1947, this festival started, and within a decade, it became way bigger than the original theater festival. And so what happened is that every single little university theater became full. And so that little pubs started to have theaters. Churchyards had theaters. They built tents with theaters. So it started with a couple of, a few dozen shows. Last year, there were over 4,000 shows. And
And
I
it's
don't
like
mean,
a week-long festival, right? Or
it's a
2 weeks?
month-long
Month-long.
festival. The
And you went
entire,
there for the first time when you were still at the University of Chicago, right? With off campus, you
yes,
went there.
yeah. This guy's done research. You're like
No,
you're
I
like
just
the act.
remember.
You're like the actor studio guy. Side story.
Give me a
Side story.
curse word.
You know those blue. We should do it at the end. You know those blue cards,
Yes.
and the actor studio when he would say like, "And you were on the first episode of I Love Lucy." Like, how did you know that? My friend from college, Jeremy Carrigan, was the research guy for that show for years.
Oh, no kidding.
And he's the one that came up with the information on the blue cards. Anyway, he's a playwright in his own right now. He wrote a play with another person from the University of Chicago called Lifespan of a Fact, which won all sorts of
Which doesn't
awards.
last long in DC.
No, it doesn't. That's what it's about, actually.
What's
So,
that? A fact? Have you ever? Hey, excuse me, Speaker Johnson. You ever heard of this thing? They call it a fact.
that's the other show we can do. We can do it like California Lefty. Right? So anyway, So actually, so in 1989, a few people don't know, well before the internet,
Did-
okay, my really good friend Joelle Munchak,
Yes, I remember. I don't
did,
think I did
uh,
meet her
you did meet her,
very
yeah, yeah,
briefly.
yes.
I think
So
that was
Joe,
around the time that you graduated there in
I graduated in
91.
'91, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah,
stayed with you. Went to visit. I remember I went to visit you for a week. I think it was your senior year,
yeah,
or
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
the year. What was the year that they did that play that I ended up getting cast in?
Waiting for Lefty,
Waiting for what?
Waiting for Lefty, Clifford
No,
Odets.
no, it was
Oh, a different play. It was a
Awake and Sing. No,
Awake and
was
Sing.
that it?
Yeah, Clifford Odets play. You were great in that play, by the way. People don't realize. Look,
No, they
I'm
don't.
telling you,
They think Steve Hartman's the guy from
eh,
ABC.
you're even more.
They-
That's how talented you are.
I don't even look like the guy. He's getting all
Just
my credit.
why you don't need to look like him on radio. So,
Well, no, it's kind of on
so,
video too.
so check this out. So 1989, it's a couple of years before I graduated, Joelle did all this research using books and got information about this festival via mail, like envelopes going back and over the ocean.
Just think of how long that would have taken.
It was crazy what she figured. So she organized for like 12 of us to go to Edinburgh to be part of the Fringe. We had a midnight show. I played the piano and acted in the show because
Yeah.
our piano player dropped out. And at that year, I think there were probably about 800 shows the entire festival. It's grown to, like I said, over 4,000 shows. And I'm not talking about performances. I mean 4,000 shows
Right.
over 30 days. It's like thousands and thousands of perform. You could not physically see every show if you wanted to when you're there.
Right,
It's
because
too
each
many.
performance or each show would have multiple performances.
Yeah, it's like 30. So most people go for the whole month, but some people would just go for a week. So you get all sorts of mixes. But I did the show in 1989, and I vowed after that summer I had such a great time that I would go every year. Now I didn't get to go every year because it's kind of expensive,
But you
but
went pretty often.
I
I
did.
remember you would when you
I
and I would
did.
talk more regularly. You would say, "Getting ready to go this year." You would create all
Yeah.
these shows to bring there,
Yeah.
and I mean
It's
that's an. I wouldn't have the goulions to do that. I mean, I can come up with writing stuff, and we always talked about, no, it's not that you're afraid to fly; it's you're afraid to fly coach, and it's like
it's true.
as like my
I always
reasons to why
upgraded.
I wouldn't get over there.
Yeah.
But I've always envied you when you would go because that's one of the places on my bucket list that I've always wanted to go, always wanted to experience. And the closest I came to that was when the Ontario Fringe decided to do my children's musical,
Your children's show, which by the way would sell out and do amazingly in Edinburgh. It
which
would
is
do
why I
great.
gave you permission to go do it.
Yeah. I haven't been I haven't been moving around much. This is just a side story in the last couple of years. I'm a little bit I'm not as light on my feet as I was back in the day.
It
Anyway,
was that deep fried pizza that you had.
honestly, that's if I didn't have the Scottish tendency for fried food in my blood, yeah. And my name's Craig. Well, so here's the story. So I went to Edinburgh. And I got really sick. Now, in America, if you get sick, unless you have health care, you just kind of like, well, that's it. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Throw you out. In Edinburgh, a friend of mine said, well, if you're here doing the Fringe, then you can go to the National Health Service. I said, really? I mean, I'm not from Scotland. They go, yeah, it doesn't matter. So I phone, you actually can make an appointment for the ER in Scotland.
No kidding.
So I phoned up, and the woman goes, and I swear she sounded just like Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello, dear. Well, hello, dear. What? She had a name. I said, it's Craig. She said, I'm sorry, spell that for me, dear. I said, see? She said, oh, no, dear. Your name is Craig. It's not Craig. I was like, you know what? You're right. That's what my grandmother used to say. She said, no, your name is Craig. Craig. So now, do you know my iPhone, when I connect the Bluetooth, says, now connecting to Craig's iPhone. Anyway, so
So you just have to plan getting sick during the Fringe.
Yes, it's a great healthcare plan. So I actually did. I went, and not only do they see you at the ER on a schedule, but then they give you the drugs that you need and send you home in a cab for free.
Well, as long as they're not sending you home in a casket, that's better.
It's a great casket.
That's right. Not only do you get the ride home, you get to sleep in it.
So
give you a Murphy bed.
So check this out. 1989. I fly. Now this is also right after. I fly about 2 weeks after the Lockerbie, Scotland accident or something like that, I think. And I flew Pan Am, a 747 Pan Am. I was the only one on the entire plane. And the plane was called, all the Pan Am planes had names, like Skydiver or whatever. Mine was called the Sea Witch. And I remember my mother at the airport going, "You're not getting on that plane. That is not the." And it was stormy. Sea Witch.
Hello and welcome aboard the Sea Witch. Please don't pay any attention to our safety precautions. Underneath your seat, you will find a broom. Should we lose pressure in the cabin, grab that mother and fly out the way.
On this trip is me, Jeremy Carrican, who I said is now a playwright. He's a great writer. He just performed in London. Anyway, he's a very funny guy. David Auburn, who won the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award for a play called Proof. He was in our cast. Ariel Eckstadt, who's like a publisher now. She has her own like publishing thing. Jeff Hesser, who's like a sculptor. I mean, all these like people who before. A guy named Bert Fry, who I just love to death, great guy. Anyway, all these people who would later on go on to be like big in there are all sitting there living, 12 of us in an apartment. And I'm not allowed to sleep during normal hours because I snore. So people are like, "Shut the hell up, man."
I can vouch for that.
So that was 1989, and I vowed to go back. And I didn't go back for a few years after that, but starting in like the 2000s, I started going almost every year. So I went like 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. I skipped 2009 because my mom got sick and passed away.
Yeah, think about you. I think about her and your father all the time.
Yeah, with the dog? Yeah, with the dog. Stephen, let me show you how to cut the bread. Let me show you cut the. Anyway, so
we have an episode for every story.
So I was working a computer job out in LA. I had done a couple of television things, and I had done a couple of small things, but I hadn't really made great strides. And I'd been out here a few years. Like I came out here in '97, and I was like, things are not, so I took a computer job, and after a couple of years, I said, you know what, I want to get back into performing, and really, so I wrote a one-man show called Cowboys and Indians.
I remember that one.
Yeah, well, Cowboys and Indians was really only written for a European audience. Like it wouldn't fly over here, but what the joke was, I was a Border Patrol agent called George W. Worthington III, who went by WW3, was my nickname. And I was going to Scotland to find illegal Mexicans on the Fringe. And here's what's great. The show, I downloaded the actual U.S. Border Patrol training guide, and that was my show. But I did it like this. I did a George W. Bush impression because he was like president at the time. I was like, "I'm going to tell you something right now. I was going through the airport, and it turns out, I didn't know this, you're not allowed to bring firearms into the airport. I don't know how you people kill people over here with maybe like crossbows or stuff, but in America, we do all right with guns." So my character did a show and actually the year before I did a show where it was called The Giant Wheel of Accents and Dialects, and I had this giant roulette wheel.
Didn't you incorporate that into another show?
Yes.
The story. Yes.
Mr. Fezziwig, the kids show. Yeah.
Yep.
So I had this giant roulette wheel that I got in Vegas, and I had all these accents on it. And I would spin the wheel, get a topic from the audience, and then whatever accent came up, I'd have to do a like shtick in that accent. So the first year I did that show at a venue in Edinburgh called Sweet. Sweet venues they were very smart. There were so many people doing the Fringe that it was very hard to find a place to perform. So what these guys did was, he was a producer named Julian Caddy, who's in London. he actually used to run the Brighton Fringe recently, and now he's running the Scarborough Fair. He's actually running the real Scarborough Fair now. Julian Caddy, very
Scarborough, New Jersey.
Scarborough, England.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I always thought that the song
Uh,
Scarborough Fair was sung about Scarborough, New Jersey.
well, that would be very
Probably
romantic.
not.
It's not. It was not. So anyway, I did this show as part of Sweet. Now, I like the Sweet venue. In fact, I met another producer there who now runs Sweet venues, named JD Henshaw, who's also a playwright, and he's based out of Dundee, Scotland, which is up north. And so you go to be truly Scottish
Mm-hmm.
to live in Dundee. Aye. Anyway, so
Big knives up there.
It's a butter knife.
Oh, that there's a knife.
That's like the names of golf clubs. We're always saying,
Crocodile
that's a
doesn't live up
mashie,
there,
a
though.
niblet. Yeah, no crocodile.
No, crocodile.
So I do the show, and I love the venue and all that stuff. It was in a hotel. That's what they did. That was very smart. They rented hotel suites and used those as venues, and they were very nice. However, it was very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the problems with the Fringe is it's gotten so big that it's gotten super expensive. So there are people who live in Edinburgh who rent out their apartment for the month to performers and make like half their rent for the year.
Yeah.
Because it's so expensive.
I believe it.
And in fact, the second year I went, when I did the Cowboys and Indians show, I did it under a banner of a festival thing called the Free Festival. And the Free Festival is you only pay a little bit to the venue manager. They find you a space that is essentially like a bar, like where you can do 2 or 3 people shows. The bar lets you do the show. You don't have to pay rent on the theater, which is amazing. But you're not allowed to sell tickets. You're only allowed to
collect, like pass the hat.
Like indoor busking, yeah. However, when I did that, I made way more money because people would come in for free.
Right.
And then I would then you do a little speech at the end and go, I'm a starving artist. I used to do this joke. I'm a starving artist. I was like,
they only limited me to 3 sandwiches.
I'm only 300 kilos and I'm a starving artist because in America we're a lot larger than people here. So put 500 stone or whatever you use for currency here into the bucket. And so I make money doing the Fringe. So from 2006 on, I did the Free Festival. And actually, I'm in charge of their website now. And just this week, the Free Festival, if you go to freefestival.com or freefestival.com, you can fill out an application to perform in the Fringe.
And do you happen to know what the deadline for that is? So if people see this and they can be musicians and performers, right? They don't have to be actors
No, you can be musicians, a dancer, you can be a storyteller, you can be anything that you can do in front of people,
Within reason, of course.
Legally do in front of people.
Well, I don't know what's legal over there.
Well, it's just called.
This is the land of Benny Hill, after all.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, the deadlines, there's an early deadline in March. And then there's the actual deadline, I think, is in May. But the early deadline, it's cheaper. So there's 2 levels. There's the actual Fringe. They have a thing called the Fringe Society, and they're in charge of the actual festival, the Fringe Festival. And their website is edfringe.com. Okay. So edfringe.com is where you have to apply for the main festival. But there's the festival, and then you have to get your own venue. So you have to get your own theater. Mm-hmm. So the venue, they always call them the venue because sometimes they're not theaters. They're churchyards, they're tents, they're bars, they're hotel rooms. There are all sorts of things where you can perform. And so some people even do virtual shows. They don't even actually go there. This is a new thing since COVID. So you can actually do a show like this. You could do where they actually project it on the screen. You're like, hey, Edinburgh, the weather outside. Ooh. Anyway, but Free Festival is a subset. So out of the 4,000 shows, probably about 400 of them are run by the Free Festival. Now, there's another group that does free shows called the Free Fringe. So it's almost like what in the Mighty Python? Oh, that's the Palestinian Libyan organization. They're like competing free festivals. So there's Free Festival, which is run by a company called Laughing Horse. That's my friend Alex Petty, who is an amazing venue manager, and he does shows in Australia too. In fact, they're starting up right now. They're going to be doing shows in Perth, which is so. the Fringe started in Edinburgh in 1947, but it has now spread around the world.
Yep.
So, like in the 90s, there was a New York Fringe that started. I performed a show that I did in Chicago there. And there's a Hollywood Fringe now that's been going on for about 12, 13
Yeah,
years.
and I remember you've been involved with that from
Yeah,
early
I
early
did
on.
shows early on. I did the one man show that I did that was probably had the most success
I
in
Am Google, wasn't it?
I Am Google. Yeah, it was basically the show is Google is turns out just a guy who is does research from home out of books and has these rotary phones, and every time you do a Google search, he goes, "Hello, it's Google." Yeah, hold on a second. He's looking at dictionaries. Like, you remember these things called books? Remember these? That's all I do. I'm just very fast. Turns out you can't be gruntled. No, you can be disgruntled,
Can't
but
be.
you can't. No, it's not in here. You can't be gruntled. So, um, I Am Google. I started that in 2010 in the Hollywood Fringe, and then I did it in Edinburgh for years. And when I go, that show sells out. I actually did it for Google in Dublin,
Yeah.
and I did it for Google in Mountain View up in Northern California, which was kind of fun. So the festival, the venue manager is the Free Festival. There's other venues one's called like Underbelly. There's another one called Assembly Rooms. These are like the high level, pay a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
rooms. But then the Free Festival and the Free Fringe, and there's a pay what you can segment of that, where instead of just free, you can actually name your price for tickets. You're buying tickets, but you pay what you can. You pay whatever you want. So anyway, to combat the costs, these venues have become very clever and tried to bring the cost down. But where the cost has remained and gone up actually is where you stay. They call it your accommodation.
Yep.
That is where, so you have so a lot of people Airbnb, or they go through a service, or university housing opens up because the students leave. So then the universities open up their housing and you can get deals there. But what's amazing about the festival is that you will see the best thing you've ever seen in your life, followed by the worst thing you've ever seen in your life, followed by the even better thing that you've seen in your life.
It's just it's an
You will
emotional roller coaster.
you will see shows from all around the world. I saw a Japanese comedian doing his first show in English. You'll see a Bulgarian children's theater group doing puppets where you don't understand a word that they're saying, but it's amazing. I saw a Scottish high school doing the Rat Pack, singing, Frank Sinatra songs and Dean Martin and acting out the Rat Pack. And then I don't think they knew who they were. They're just like, "Hey, Dino." And it's like
Sammy
14-year-old
Davis,
kids.
how does he fit into that?
I saw a thing called Facebook the Musical. You basically,
It's a
one of
great,
the
I would think it's a great venue to bring anything experimental or new that you want to see gets an audience reaction.
anything that you have that you think, wow, it's a little bit off the beaten path. It's a little bit, I'd like to, try it out. The Fringe is the way to do it. And there's a precursor to the Edinburgh Fringe in May called the Brighton Fringe. And Brighton is the seaside town, like an hour south of London. And a lot of performers will go do both. They'll go to try their show out in May and tweak it before August when the Edinburgh Festival is. But Canada has a series of festivals
Yeah.
now. There's Ottawa, there's Ontario, there's
The Ottawa one, I think that's the one that did mine.
yes, that's right. Yeah, and it's a big one. And actually, the Canadian festivals, some of them have what's called a lottery system where you apply. They try to make it so that you can get as many people involved. And then you have Washington, D.C. has the Capital Fringe. Seattle
We
has
call
a
that
Fringe.
Congress.
I think it's easier to get into Congress than it is to get into.
And once you're there, apparently you can't get out. So, just look at a few. And now they've gone to you can wear sweats comfortably.
Well, they are senior citizens. I mean, I
you
think
make special adjustments for our special.
Well, we just like to say that your depends are free if you're in Congress now. Well, Joe Biden made it a
At
law
that
that you
point,
get.
does the bathroom debate really matter? If it's
Mr.
just
Mentor,
depends.
I have gender-free depends. It just depends. What's your gender? It depends.
This depends. What day of the week is it?
Somebody asked me, "What's your pronoun?" I said, "I."
Yeah.
It's your pronoun.
I'm a pirate.
So one of the best things about the Fringe is that when you meet someone who does the show on the Fringe, by the way, they say on the Fringe. If you're in Scotland, they wouldn't say you're at the Fringe. They say, oh, you're doing a show on the Fringe, on the Fringe. But the people that I've met, here's what's amazing about the Fringe community. For example, my brother did the iPhone app for the Free Festival in Edinburgh.
No kidding.
And yeah, he's learned to do program. I did the website and he did use the database to do the iPhone app. But because I have connections to performers, there's a great performer from Hollywood Festival named Les Kirkendall Barrett who he does a one man show called the original Swan. I have to look up the name, but it's about like a first like drag queen. I mean, just it's a crazy show. But it's a very fringe kind of
Hmm.
show. But he's performed it in Canada. He's performed it in Atlanta. Atlanta has a big fringe now for the last 10 years. Anyway, the woman who runs the fringe community, even though they're all around the world,
It's huge.
they all go to the other fringes. So the guy who's in charge of the Brighton Fringe goes to the Edinburgh Fringe. The guy who runs a venue in the Hollywood Fringe goes to Edinburgh. He goes to Brighton. And anyway, the head of the Atlanta Fringe, Diana Brown, who just moved to LA like a month ago, she really wanted to go to Edinburgh. And because of the connections that I and other people had, she raised money and was able to go to Edinburgh this last summer and meet all the venue managers. And what happens is they form this kind of network. So like I've had performers who I've only seen once in Edinburgh come here and like help them find a place to stay or
Hmm.
tell them how to get an agent out here and all that stuff. So I mean the whole Hollywood connection, if you meet I have a very good friend Paco Erhardt who does all like German based shows. I can make you German. I can make you German too.
That's an
Yeah.
interesting name, Paco Erhardt.
Well,
It's like Mexican German,
it is.
Germican,
And do you
Germican.
know why? Because he lived in Spain and he speaks English, Spanish, and German fluently. And so, like, he would come out here and visit, and then he would get in a cab and be talking to a cab driver in Spanish, but he speaks like European, like Castilian Spanish with the
Hmm.
th. But he does shows all over the world. But the point is that when he wanted to move to New York, he already knew people there because the Fringe community. So many performers had gone to Edinburgh and he had met them in Canada and Edinburgh and whatever. So the biggest discovery for me is that the Fringe community, because it's worldwide, when you go to another city, it's almost like it's like having a church group or something like that.
Hmm.
Like you know people there. You say,
There's a
hey,
familiarity and a comfort that
yeah,
you don't expect to have when you're in a
I,
place you've never been
and
before.
and through the internet, you just say, hey, listen, like that phrase, hive mind. You just go, hey, Fringe guys, I'm going to be in Ottawa. Anyone going to be there next year? Oh, yeah, I'll tell you where to stay and blah, 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 blah. You can stay with me for, a couple of days, blah, 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 blah. And I've played tour guide to a lot of Fringe people who come to LA, and I've had them all meet my agent and things like that. So it's a great way to not just put up your show. I mean, I've done shows that have gotten everything from 1 star to 5 stars for the same show on the same night. I mean, this depends on what newspaper's there and stuff. And people are all in the same boat. So it's a
Hmm.
familiarity. You've kind of like, it's almost like it's the arts version of the military. It's like we all served in the trenches together. That show and 3 people showed up and I had to, like, for example, I did a show in the Melbourne Comedy Festival and I had a reviewer coming and I didn't have anyone booked in the audience. And so I used that Fringe network to get friends to show up and be in the audience, just to fill the house. And it ended up being a good show because of it.
That's why you are so important to my existence, because I live and produce nothing. But when I do, I live vicariously through you, and I say, "Hey, can you make anything from this?"
I know. Well, it's funny because there's so much time. For example,
Hollywood doesn't know what they're missing with me not being over there. I mean,
well, you are the next Steven Spielberg. They need that. They need it now.
yeah,
Listen, look at all the
probably
problems.
really soon.
Look at all the problems they're having with Disney.
Diddy,
I mean, Disney and Diddy. Now
that's a double D you don't want to deal with.
that's a double D and D that you don't want to deal with. So one of the biggest connections I ever made was so I did this festival in Melbourne in Australia. So there's another big fringe festival called Adelaide. And Adelaide, a girl could develop a cold. Adelaide is in the south of Australia, and
Out to Sydney?
it's south and way west. Yeah, it's like in the middle of the south part.
Okay.
It's actually such in a weird spot that it's on a half-hour time zone. Like it's not on a regular time zone. It's like the 1.5 time zone.
I'll be there in a half an hour. One step, I'm here.
It's like that. So Adelaide does a big fringe, and it's extremely beautiful because it's like the tail end of, it's like the beginning of summer or the tail end of summer. Anyway, because it's in the southern hemisphere, it's all switched. So that festival's in March. So it's just it's just leaving summer, going into their cold time. But it's beautiful. It's like, like end of summer is beautiful. So in Adelaide, a lot of people who do the Adelaide Fringe, they also do what's called the Perth Fringe World, which is in January. So a lot of people will go to Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia. They'll do that festival for a month. Then they'll go to Adelaide for March. And then they'll do the Melbourne Comedy Festival like in May.
Okay.
So they'll do all three. So when I was in Melbourne, I actually met a guy who I also knew from Edinburgh named Adam Crow.
I know that name. You've spoken about him.
Yeah, he's
a writer. He did that. Didn't he do a movie that you produced?
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
It's called Warhol. Called
yes.
Warhol.
Yes.
So Adam is a great stand-up. He's got a real dry and dark sense. He'll do jokes like, I was never molested by my local priest, and I really haven't forgiven him for that. Those kind of things. I'm like really dark and.
So I'd like him.
Yeah, you would really like it. Anyway, he's a very funny stand-up, but he actually went out of his way to stop doing stand-up and direct his efforts to writing and directing. And now he's not only written several shorts, but he's written and directed like a few features now. And the short film that was called Warhol, which was done like 10 years ago, has become a feature now called Midnight Caller, which I produced, and I did some music on it too, actually. And that movie that should come out soon. They got a distribution deal last
Awesome.
year.
Midnight Caller.
Yeah, Midnight Caller. Yeah, actually, you would like, because it's about a DJ who's kind of a.
Why does that sound like the Eric Bogosian play?
Radio. A lot of people compare it to that. It has a very, very Eric Bogosian talk radio feel to it, but it has the spin of adding this kind of. It adds like these three other stories around it. It's really well done.
Okay,
so anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is that the Fringe, while it has its own life, actually spins off into again, like any major star you see in the UK who comes here, almost 100% of them has started in the Fringe.
Okay. So I'm someone who is thinking about expanding my performance capability. Sure. I'm tired of the little busking on the corner of Manchester, New Hampshire. But I want to take my show or whatnot, and I want to take it over to Edinburgh. What would be the first step I need to do? It would be the first one would be that website.
I'll tell you the first thing to do is go to freefestival.com or freefestival.co.uk. That's the British thing. Can we put links up in here?
Yeah, what I'll do is afterwards I'll go in.
I'll send you all this stuff. Yeah. So basically, freefestival.com. And then you can apply, and you should start doing that as soon as this comes out. Start doing that. And if someone like you or whatever, I'll put in a good word for you with the management, and then what happens is, what he does is he looks and sees all the people who are applying, and you can have a kid show, you can have dance, you can have music, you can have, there's a lot of stand up, there's a lot of theater, and he tries to match you up with what venues are available, because there's some venues that are good for like 4 people plays.
Yep.
And there's some venues that are good for 2-person plays or stand up, or, you need enough room for dance, then you have to be in a certain venue. So what he does is he goes through he's, got like 30 rooms or something, or 30 or 40 rooms, and he goes through and picks which one. And then you get sent an offer that says, hey, we're offering you this room for this many days. And and once you accept that, you pay a small fee to the venue man, to Free Festival. It used to be like 50, I think it's like 75 or 100 pounds or something like that, it's basically $100 and something. It's not that much, That guarantees you the space for the whole festival. And with that, you get like a sound system, a neutral background, like they have black curtains and
Hmm.
stuff like that, a microphone, and lights, just basic lights. That
So
you
all
don't
you
get
need to
any.
do is bring your clothes.
All you need to do is bring your clothes and your props if you have them. Now, the most expensive part is not the venue anymore. If
It
you do free festival,
Yeah, it's
it's
finding a
where you're going to
place to
sleep.
stay. Yeah.
Now, the good news is there's a big network of people, and if you join the Facebook group for free festival, you can say, "Hey, does anyone want to go in on a place for 4 people?" And this is how people get get accommodation, places to stay. So the place to stay is the bigger issue because if you've never been, it can be very daunting. However, I'm going to put information on my website. I have a document that I've built over the years that I can just send anybody who wants it. It's a PDF document. It has everything about the Edinburgh Fringe, where to look for accommodations, and I update it every couple of years, so I can send that to anybody that wants it.
All
I
right.
should
Well,
sell. I
that's
should. I
you
should
should
sell it.
sell it.
I
Publish it
should,
as a
but
PDF, and
here's the thing: for your viewers, it's free.
there you go. So
Eh?
if you want a
Eh?
free, all you got to do is hit the like and subscribe button, and make a comment in the comments, and we'll send it to you.
I'm getting an important call. Hold on. Hello? No, I'm on with Steve Hartman. No, not from ABC. No, not from CBS. From PDQ. That's right. Okay. I gotta
He's got
go.
a split.
I got my Apple wasn't working, so
No. What's your
do you remember that Ronnie sketch where he goes in, he's like, my BlackBerry's frozen. Did you try orange?
So if people want to get in touch with you, that you don't mind having unsolicited stuff to you.
Yeah, you can just send my Gmail address. My
All right,
Craig Shaynak at Gmail address.
and that's Shaynak. You also
Yes.
have, is KingswellProductions.com still up in
Yes,
there?
Kingswell. Yeah, I have the longest website name. KingswellProductions.com. And the reason it's called Kingswell is the street that Disney started his studio on is Kingswell Avenue. And I happen to live on Kingswell Avenue. So I thought, I'll take Kingswell as my name. And so I thought, this is in the early days of the internet. I got the domain name KingswellProductions.com. And I was so happy. I was like, yeah, I got a domain name. And people are like, that is way too long. So I actually have kingprod.com, which links to it. And I have a couple of other, like kingswell.studio, which links to it.
Ooh.
But nobody goes there. They go to
No.
Kingswell. Keep them an idiot. And then the other thing too is that if you're ever in Hollywood, I mean, the other thing that people ask me that one of the shows I did in Edinburgh was a class called How to Make in Hollywood. And not that I'm
How do you make what in Hollywood?
Lemonade.
Okay.
How to make a lemonade stand
Hollywood
out
lemonade.
of lemons. Hollywood.
Suddenly I'm thinking of Arrested Development. The banana
Yeah.
stand. There's always money in a banana stand. Actually, just don't make the San Francisco lemonade stand. You don't want to buy any lemonade from the street of San Francisco.
Hey, what's in that, girl?
Watch out for those road brownies too.
Actually, in San Francisco, I think you're allowed to steal bananas and lemons. You can do whatever you want.
It's not.
It's not against the law.
It's not a felony. It's a fruit medley.
It's fruit medley. Now listen.
Not that kind of fruit.
Listen, Mr. Woke.
I'm gonna end up getting.
You're gonna get hate mail.
Demonetized before I even have monetized.
Steven,
I'm gonna be deplatformed after the first one.
You've been demonetized since 1983.
Hey man, it's only next to my D-, just like being in school.
Let me talk about Hollywood for a second. So, when I first moved out here in '97, I originally came out here. I wanted to do screenwriting. I was like, I'm gonna write movies and stuff, right? And I actually wrote a screenplay called To Be or Not, and it was about a guy who goes back in time and meets Shakespeare.
I remember this premise.
It's kind of funny. Actually, I've looked at it recently because I was thinking about updating because it was all before like cell phones and stuff. Yep. And I thought it'd be funny if a guy goes back in time, but his cell phone still works. And the guy goes, well, how does the cell phone work? Because no one knows about time travel. So it's like, well, the cell phones, I mean, the towers are still there. They're just not there in the right same time zone. So they're still there. It's like, yeah, but like 1,000 years later, it's technical. You wouldn't understand. Anyway, so I wrote the screenplay and I actually sent it to Kenneth Branagh.
And he's the one who did that Dead Again, which is a movie I love,
Yes.
Dead Again. It kind of around that
Yes.
same thing about past life over that transition of
Yes.
time travel.
But yeah, but Kenneth Branagh is like the king of Shakespeare. He's
Yep.
done more Shakespeare movies than anyone. So I sent it to him, and his literary assistant, Tamar Thomas, called me back and said, I think this is great. It's charming. What's going on with it? I said, nothing. I've never written it. It's the first thing I've ever written. And they set me up with meetings when I first moved out here.
No,
And
you never told me that.
yeah, that's how I decided to move out here. Because it was like, yeah, you know what? I might be able to do something with this. I mean, nothing ever came of it, but it's one of those things where you get somebody's like interested in an option on something. You think, oh, that's it. It's so easy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Snap of a finger.
But well, then
Most people, I have to tell people this because if you don't know Craig, I have the uncanny privilege and honor of knowing Craig
oh,
for quite a while. And Craig's the kind of guy who will learn Arabic on his own just because.
Nam Khalilan.
He got his degree from University of Chicago in medieval studies because why not?
Well,
he's absolutely brilliant, but he's brilliantly funny. He's also unbelievably creative. You absorb things like a sponge. You do.
Like pizza.
Well,
if you see the larger.
But you had a banana there, and we couldn't actually see on camera the morphing and absorbing thing. But you really are. I mean, you have everything you need.
No sponsorship. No sponsorship.
But you have always been that kind of just the intelligence beyond, and the ability that you've had, and the gumption, and the no give up attitude that you've displayed as long as I've known you out in Hollywood has been awe-inspiring, because I've watched you go from when we would make these goofy $4.95 masterpieces back in junior high school. My talent is getting people who can't stand me to come in and dress up in silly outfits to run around and hit me with a flower.
I need to interrupt you because I just said this to somebody yesterday after I said, "Oh, I'm going to go on Stephen Hartman show," and they were like, "Oh, Stephen Hartman from ABC?" Like, well, it's ABC adjacent. Anyway,
you're going to make sure they watch this.
Well, here's the funny thing. I always look at you as when I produced a movie, I actually was playing the role of you. Because when I got involved in producing, so writing is one thing, but directing is another thing. But producing, people don't understand. It's a very intangible thing where you have to get people excited about something to the point where they show up.
Yep.
That is the most difficult skill, and you, my friend, have taught me a lot about that. Because
how did I end up doing that back then? These people hated me.
I mean, and it is no joke. There were people who were really what I would call Stephen Hartman resistant, which is the PC term, the woke term. Who would show up and do anything you said
on a Saturday morning?
On a Saturday morning with a Super 8 camera. I mean, that's crazy. But you know what it is? It shows you that and actually that defines what Hollywood is. Not every Hollywood set is harmonious. In fact, most of the great work comes out of sets that have a little bit of contention, that people don't necessarily like each other. Like if you see a movie and like, oh, everyone got along, that movie's probably not as good as like Die Hard, where people didn't always get along, or Back to the Future, where people didn't always get along. I mean, the great movies come out of a little bit of a tension. There's a little tension. And one of the things that I think my fortune lies in the fact that I have extremely good luck, and I have a pretty good personality and don't rub a lot of people the wrong way at first meeting. So I have a lot of luck. But what I learned in doing producing stuff, because I produced a few shorts and a couple of features now, you have to sometimes be the bad guy, but still get people excited about the project. Tell them your budget is $0, but we really need you to do this. Or, I can't pay you until this happens, but it's amazing.
I remember doing that when I was producing the children's musical, when I was doing the
Yes.
before publishing, doing all the showcases. Like I couldn't pay these performers. I wanted to, so I said the first
Right.
time I got a paid thing, we went to them, and
Right.
I
But
remember the first time I left to do. I'll never forget this. There was an off-Broadway production of Chess, and I wanted to. They were looking for a master electrician.
right.
I I just wanted to run the light board, but they were looking for a master electrician, and I went on the interview. No, I've run light boards. I hang lights and focus stuff. I kind of could get by,
Sure.
but as far as master electrician, that is a term I've not worn prior nor since that happened. So, but it comes down to the interview, and there's two of us there. There's a woman to my left, and then there's me. And the producer goes, "Are you available to do days?" And they're like, "No." "Are you available to do days?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got nothing going on." "Okay, we're going with him because you need
Yeah,
someone to do these matinees." And
that's
so this
right.
was when it was because it was being extended beyond the union contract. I didn't have to be union to get the job.
Right. Right.
So I ended up doing that, and I'm like, wow. So I had to strike everything by myself. And in an off-Broadway production, there are easily over 500 instruments,
No,
miles of cable. My
that's
hands were
insane.
black for like 3 weeks
Yeah. Yeah.
after that set, and I'm like kicking myself out. I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing this again. It was like karma for lying to get the job, but
But
it
you know
was
what?
experience, and I
But you know
loved
what?
doing it.
I, it's funny. I got a master electrician job in a college production because my friend Joelle was directing it. She's like, "Well, you know about the light stuff," and I went, "Of course." All right, so I had help actually. So I had help, and we were hanging the lights, and I made a plot. I spent weeks like reading everything about
Mhm.
light plots and whatever. And I had hung lights for other people's shows, and I had focus lights, and I had done the light board, and I've done everything. But designing the lights, I had never done. So in my brain, I wired it completely wrong. Meaning, every time I had a light that was staged right, I had it wired to a light that was staged left, and they would come on at the same time. And people are like, so one of the other, I never forget this guy Jeff from Boston. Jeff is like, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "Well, I figured it would balance out because you have to light the different areas. You have to have independent control of the area. You can't just light everything and balance the whole stage because you'll never be able to focus on one area." And I was like, so that night from like 9 o'clock p.m. when we discovered this till 3 in the morning, when he helped me learn what I was supposed to really do. But this is how you learn though, right? Is to do
Yep.
something well above your pay grade.
And
I
hope
did
you
all.
live to tell the tale.
You know what? If you don't get like, I did props on a play in an off-Broadway venue called the American Jewish Theater, which is like the director
That was Tony and
was
Tita's wedding, wasn't it? Isn't that
no
how you
no
got
no
famous?
this is in New York. My friend from college, Aaron Shershow, did a lot of stage tech, a lot of set design, a lot of set building. He now does location scouting for movies that are filmed in China. He speaks Chinese fluently, and he knows movie production. Anyway, he got me a job as a props guy for a off-Broadway show, but it was directed by a famous actor named Lonnie Price.
Mhm.
Now, Lonnie Price had done like those musicals, like oh, it's part of a trilogy. I'll remember it in a minute. But Lonnie Price is famously the guy who works in, who's like in charge, the son of the guy in charge of the summer camp in, what's the one with Jennifer Grey and at the time of my life. It's a
You're
famous
just a
movie.
virtual
Dirty Dancing. Dirty
knowledge.
Dancing. Anyway, Lonnie Price, he's directing this play, and the guy who was helping me with the set design, the guy who was doing the set design was named John Farabella, who did all the set designs for Harvey Weinstein. Well, not Harvey Firestein, not Harvey Weinstein. Very different Harvey.
Yeah.
Is that so
Yes.
wrong? Is that so wrong? Anyway, so I remember robbing everything from my mother's kitchen and bringing it for the kitchen set. It looked great. Looked like a real kitchen, you know. Then like they had that stuff for years, and my brother and I had to go back and steal it back. Anyway, I did not know what I was doing, but those are the jobs where you learn.
Yeah.
The jobs where you learn are the ones where you're thrown in way above your, above your
Pay grade.
paddling level.
That's
And
true.
you're like, it's the only way, and they would say that in sports, like the only way to,
It's, for a perfectionist, it's hard because that's your sink or swim. Anything your name is attached to, if you're in the performing arts or if you're anything like me or you, is
yeah,
you cannot afford for there to be any mistake. You don't want there to be, because your name is now forever attached to it. So
that's
I'm
right.
like, that's never been a thing that I've always felt. I mean, I'll still do it, but it's still one of those things that we have to you're right. We have to have a conversation every week and have a segment, Conversations with Craig, every week, because there's so much. I have to I need to clock out of this one because I think I'm running out of time on this thing. We are using a really cool thing that I'm trying for the first time. It's this Riverside FM. So last time,
we have to cut off. Because I was going to say,
yeah, but don't,
say one. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
yeah, but don't, whatever you do, don't hang up. I'll still be able to talk to you, but don't,
Okay, all right.
don't hang up.
Won't hang up.
But if anyone wants to reach you for the Fringe or get more information, it's great that you're willing to have that discussion. If everybody want to reach out to you, they can email you. I'll put the email address down there. It's craigshaynak@gmail.com.
That's right.
Or craigshaynak@gmail.com. And before we go, I have to tell you this story. I can no longer laugh at your brother. It automatically shut us off, I think. Oh, no, it's still going. I can't tell. I can no longer laugh at your brother for falling down the up escalator that year because...
Wait, I did that. I'm the one who fell.
No. Was it you that fell? I thought it was me and you watching him go up and kept falling.
No, I fell. My legs got
Craig,
cut.
then I'm sorry. I can no longer laugh at you for that. So
yeah.
I was Christmas shopping with my friend, and she was getting a mixer for her daughter. And I'm because I have neuropathy on my feet. My sensations are different, so I never really know. So I'm on an escalator, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm falling forward, and I'm holding this mixer at the top of the escalator. I lean forward to grab and fumble the mixer, and then I lean forward to grasp so I don't fall down the steps. So the mixer goes boom, 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 boom. And because we were at the top of the escalator, we still had to wait for it to come down. So we're sitting there, and we knew everybody was watching us. Like, it's the most embarrassing thing. I'm like,
and the escalator, you get cut up.
Oh, no, I didn't actually fall. I stopped myself from falling, but I dropped the mixer. It was like one of those stand mixers because I was holding it. And we're watching it from the top just tumble down this escalator. And we were at the top, and the escalators only go so fast. You can't get down to the bottom fast. So now everybody's looking at us, and we're like, yeah.
Wait, I have to say one more thing about the Hollywood thing. And it ties into the Fringe. So the reason I was going to tie this together is that many years later, after doing Fringes and doing crappy jobs and lighting things or making short films, I find myself acting in a TV show called Ray Donovan. And two of the people in the show are James Woods and John Voight. They're legends.
I'd love to meet them. And John Voight is my favorite.
We can do a whole episode of them because, first of all, I heard the story independently from both of them. We get in a makeup chair in the morning. And they're very conservative, and I'm more liberal, although I've become a lot more conservative in the last few years, much to your probably.
Well, I think it's more, it's not one or the other. To me, it's a basic common sense thing. So, like, there are those on the, and again, this is another discussion, but there are those on the right that are like, wow. And then but equally so, there are those on the left that are like, I don't want to move to Russia. And then there's the ones who are in the common sense thing that this makes sense to me. How do we do this? Okie dokie. Go from there.
So I may actually mention that because James Woods and John Voight are more conservative, especially since 10 years ago. I was a little more. So we would pepper each other with jokes about like stuff, about like Benghazi and Hillary Clinton. We would in the makeup chair in the morning. We joke, and James Woods would joke. He goes, "No amount of makeup's going to help you, Craig." And I go, well, it's the hair that I'm really here for the help for. And now he and I really got along great, right? So we're on set. It's me, James Woods, John Voight, in a scene where I've just dug a ditch and we've just killed Rosanna Arquette and I've thrown her in the hole. And I'm looking at them, and then we have a break. I independently from each of them heard how they met. John Voight was doing a play in Boston, directed by Ben Affleck's dad.
Fred Affleck.
George Fred. So Woods.
He was directed by the.
James Woods was a young guy at university. He was at MIT for political science, which I used to tease him about. I go, everyone else goes to MIT for real stuff, but you went for political science. So I guess that's okay too. Now, James Woods is a genius, like a
Yeah.
bona fide genius. Anyway, so James tells me the story that I saw John Voight and I said, I want to do that for a living. I want to do that. And he approached him after the show and said, how do I do what you do? And John Voight was very nice to him, told him, gave him advice about what to do, blah, blah, blah. And many years later, they're working together. And I'm
That's
there to
awesome.
witness it.
I mean, that's amazing.
And John Voight tells me the story independently. And John Voight's like, I got to tell you, I knew Jimmy from when he was young. He came up to me in a play. And I heard the story from both sides. And my mind was blown.
That's amazing.
So we're sitting there. John Voight is a great actor because he's really trying to figure out James Woods is very logical.
Yep.
I would never do that. I would never do that. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But John Voight's very emotional. So John Voight's like, why does this scene feel weird to me? It feels weird, feels wrong. So we're sitting there in between scenes. And I said, look, me watching you guys, it's like a master class. I said, I haven't been this interested in acting in 10 years. This is amazing. And they both said, Craig, you're with us. And I was almost in tears, right? I was like, oh, this is so great. I said, John, I know why you think the scene feels weird. James Woods is about to kill you and he's making you walk up to this hole. He's going to kill you. But you don't want to walk up to the hole. You keep just doing it. So you have to do everything in your power to stay away from that hole. And he goes, that's right. And John Voight has his like big blue eyes. That's right. That's right. And James Woods is like, oh, great. Now you're getting some actor stuff to do. Right. So I say, you guys need anything? I'm going to go get a drink. You guys need anything from craft services, which is where they have all the drinks and stuff. So I leave and I come back and, on the back of the chairs in Hollywood, they put your name if you're a big star.
Yeah.
But if you're not a big star, they just put the name of the show. Well, I came back and John Voight had scribbled my last name on a piece of paper and taped it to the back of the chair.
That's awesome.
And he said, there's your chair, my boy.
That's
and
awesome.
I lost it. And it was like, he said, don't devalue your experience just because you did like one-man shows. And they kept saying Ireland instead of Scotland, which is funny because you do a one-man show in Ireland doesn't make you less of an actor.
See, that's the amazing thing to me. And that's the thing that, and I know I've often told this to you.
It really touched me, man.
I get it. And I live, like I said, I live vicariously through you. And I keep wondering where I would be had I chosen a different direction to go.
Well, listen, you're not dead yet.
No, although the last couple of 24 hours has been questionable. I came this close to going blind in my left eye. I found out yesterday, and a major bleed in my eye that it's still kind of fuzzy. So I went there with some injections and stuff like that. So this is another reason why I need to get lots of subscribers onto this channel so I can make it marketable, because I'm going to be an invalid soon, and I need to be able to support my my donut habit. But I've always wondered, because I watched, and I would tell you this, I've watched things on TV, and we discuss these shows on TV and how horrible most of them are, or how movies
a lot of
and
them
stuff.
are not good. Yeah.
And I'm like, I always felt that, not that I'd make a difference, but I always felt that I could be in something that would be entertaining, or that I'd succeeded if I ever did it. But I could not live out in LA. I absolutely cannot live out in LA.
Let's put it this way. I mean, well, I've had some successes, but it's been a long time. I mean, I haven't been in a show in like 8 years. I haven't been in a show in a while. And part of that is that, I've gotten out of shape. I'm not healthy enough to really go run around a set. And so and for me to get back into it, I have to kind of get back into shape. It's one thing to produce something sitting here on the phone and getting people around the world to do stuff. But, to actually get up and do it, you got to be in a certain shape, and you have to kind of make it a priority. There's no reason that you can't do whatever you want to do from wherever you want now.
Well, I think what I've decided now is with this format and with you, we could do the Fringe Files and literally showcase shows that want to do the Fringe, or have done the Fringe, and incorporate and help promote stuff like that.
So to cap off the James Woods, John Voight. So I had a great time with James Woods. I was on a bunch of episodes with him, and we got along great. Even we didn't always see it eye to eye and stuff, but that was made it funnier. That we would argue about. So, but I really, really like him. So 2 years ago, a friend of mine from London comes over, an actor named Chris Ryman, who's a great actor in London. And Chris is another friend of mine, a friend of another friend of mine from London, Jason Cavan, who I did Edinburgh Fringe with many years. Anyway, Chris Ryman comes here, and we go to Musso and Frank's, which is the famous restaurant in Hollywood where people do deals. And if you've seen the Quentin Tarantino movie, the Hollywood movie with Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio,
Oh,
there's
that wasn't. I don't know.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
No.
whatever. Anyway, the big scene with Al Pacino and Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt is in Musso and Frank's.
Okay.
So anyway, so I go to Musso and Frank's with my friend Chris because that's one of my favorite restaurants. And who's in there but James Woods and his wife, who at the time I met her was his girlfriend and now is his wife, and another couple. And my friend goes, "Oh, there's your friend." Now I don't think my friend believed that I knew James Woods.
Oh, so he was like, "Hey, there's your friend James."
Yeah, a little bit of that. I mean, so then I go over and go, "I'm sorry to interrupt," and James goes, "Oh my God, it's Tiny!" And he stands up, and he hugs me. We talk for like 15 minutes. He interrupts. He goes, "Sorry to interrupt, but oh my God, how are you? How have you been? What's going on?" And I go, "Hey, Jimmy, how's it going?" Because his friends call him Jimmy. And he goes, "Do you still have my email?" I go, "Yeah, I do." I go, "I never email you." And he goes, "You got to email me, whatever." And he goes, and we're talking, and he goes, "Remember that guy we got fired?" I go, "Yeah, that was great." He goes, "That guy was such a jerk." And I go, "Well, we didn't get fired." He goes, "Yeah, well, he should have been fired." Anyway, so we're joking and blah, 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 blah. And I go, and I see that this is now your wife. She goes, "Yeah, hey, Craig, how you doing?" He goes, "Yeah." So then I go sit down with my friend. My friend's like, "Oh my God, he really likes you. He really wants you to email him," which I should do, by the way. Anyway, so
2 years later.
so then we get a bottle of wine. We get a guy coming over, looks like a mafia guy. "Anything I can help you with, you guys let me know. I'm here for you." I'm like, "James Woods is giving us a guy. We have a guy." Anyway, what's amazing is when you work with someone, like I did one scene in Ted 2, and if I run into Mark Wahlberg, or I did one scene in The Informant with Matt Damon, and if I run into him, they remember you. Because even though they work with thousands of people, that you're all in it together. So
Right.
you have to forget about these levels. People who work with you when you're, coming up, they want you to succeed. They want you to do well. I have a girl in my building. She was in a movie with Scarlett Johansson. You're always one job away from being in that list.
Well, I'm one podcast away from 100,000 subscribers. This is it. This is it. So
listen, this is great fun, man. We really do need to do this every week.
And I think a Fringe themed podcast would probably be, and we can get people from anyone from the planet can do this. I just send them a link.
Tons of names of people who do Fringe that would love to do it.
Cool. Then we'll set it up. All right.
Will.
Craig, thank you so much. Don't hang up, but don't hang up.